Hello, gorgeous woman, and welcome to this exclusive and very special series of the Rebel Matriarch Podcast, Mystics Unhinged. In this space, our beautiful mystics are coming forth and they are speaking unfiltered, unedited, uncensored truths that every woman needs to hear, especially you. So buckle up, get ready, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous human beings, and welcome to the Rebel Matriarch Podcast. My name is Samantha Sanford, and we are on episode 3 of the Mystics Unhinged series. And Andrea is already bringing so much energy that I had to take a moment and ground myself before I hit record. And so I know that today is going to be a really powerful conversation. And so for anyone who's tuning in, I'm going to recommend, without knowing where this episode is going, to just take a few moments or a few moments and to just breathe in and just whoo, and just receive this with an open heart and an open mind, because my guest today is an incredibly powerful mystic. So she's 3rd generation, which I find absolutely fascinating. And she's also got her own powerful story. And I'm really eager to hear about her journey. Sorry, we've just had someone join the room. To hear about her story, to hear about her journey, and to really witness her gifts in real time. So, Andrea, thank you so much for being here.
Samantha, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I think these spaces are so powerful. So I'm so grateful for you bringing us all together to have these beautiful conversations about the divine. So thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And I'm curious to know, can you actually deepen that aspect of why these conversations are so important now?
Absolutely. I think there are multiple facets to this, in that I truly believe that we are stepping into this time that mysticism, connecting with God, connecting with Source, really owning who we are and these beautiful intuitive base gifts that we have. The timing is like starting to normalize these types of conversations. And so being brave enough at this time to create these spaces where we can come and be like, oh yeah, that does happen to me. And I do have this feeling and I have this intuitive knowing, or this thing happened to me the other day. And actually being able to normalize these conversations, the timing over history starting to align now, where we can come together as men, as women, as humans on this planet and just have these chats. And I really believe that it's also important, and this beautiful convergence is happening because there's just so much chaos and change and shifting of not only consciousness but power structures, things that we desire, things that we're brave enough to go after. There's this big shift that's happening, and we need as humans to be in our power. We need to be in and owning all of the facets of who we are, not just identity, not just career or profession or drive or all of those beautiful socially accepted things out there, but this intuitive side of ourselves, this mystical, magical, and whether it's God, whether it's Source, universe, guides, angels, spirits, it doesn't matter, but these parts of ourselves that are so deeply intrinsic to being human, to being a soul in a human body, like really owning that in combination with our voice and these missions and movements that we want to lead to make these beautiful social changes that are the world is really calling for, I think is so powerful. And so that's why these spaces where we can come together and normalize these experiences, or normalize the experience as a human of having something that is outside the 5 senses, I think is powerful. And the timing and the planets and society and conversation and vernacular, it's all converging now, particularly here in 2026, for us to be really in these spaces and having these conversations.
Ooh, heart is racing. Is there a reason you feel that it's happening now? and we can zoom out. It doesn't have to be just humanity based, because I understand, well, my understanding is that obviously we're spiritual beings, we're all energy, there's a lot happening. And whilst there's a lot of chaos on earth, there is also spiritual chaos, there's spiritual warfare, and there are things happening in all the different dimensions and realms. And I would love your insight on, is there a reason that it's all coming to heads now, the good and the bad?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that I would love to reframe potentially is around around the word warfare. Because I know you just mentioned there, like there's spiritual warfare happening. I think it's like a yes and I think that's from my perspective and the way that I work with source and I work with energy, it's not warfare. To me, it doesn't feel like warfare. It's not something to be afraid of. It's destructive, but it's also creative. It's like this beautiful, energetic reorganizing that's happening. And us as humans, with the experience and the things that we experience in terms of suffering and change and shifting and power imbalances, we love to frame things in terms of like growth or warfare and things. But I think what's happening is that there's like this shifting, awakening, creation, destruction that's happening, that has always happened. But us as humans, now that we're more open and more sensitive to it, we're feeling it. We're like, oh yes, of course. Of course this feels like a massive shift. There's a lot of things happening in the energetic realms, those invisible realms, the energy of all of the space that happens around us at all different levels. It's like creating and destructing and creating and destructing in this most beautiful, magnificent, potential way. But because we're sort of just stepping into this space where we're getting used to being really connected and aware, and when I say aware, I'm talking about the level of capacity that we have as a human mind to understand it. But we're becoming aware, we're becoming open and sensitive to this. And it can feel like a bit of a wash. You know, I remember, even though I'm third generation, it took me a long time to open, to trust, to soften, to be in full service of my gifts. You know, if I look at my mother's journey, she started having visitations and visions and intuitive knowings right when she was a child. But I didn't have that open yet. And so we're coming into this time to answer your question, where as humans, we're more aware of it. And so we're feeling it on that real deep, visceral level that just feels like this, as I mentioned, this wash of like, what is happening? What is all this creative energy and destructive energy? But I believe what is happening is us finally tapping into what's already existed and being brave enough and willing to actually leverage it and start using it.
You know what? I love that I used the word spiritual warfare and that you came back with this clarifying answer, because it's language that's used unconsciously. Like I said it because in the rooms that I'm in the conversations that I'm having, it's a topic of conversation. And while most of those conversations have a similar perspective as yours, where it's not all bad, there is like this underlying fear that can circulate using that language. And so I love that I said it and that you gave this beautiful perspective. I also love that you used that it's creative and destructive, because those two words are really powerful. And when I hear those words together, I don't think, oh God, this is bad. I think death, rebirth. I think we're deconstructing what's no longer serving us, what's no longer moving humanity forward, what's no longer moving, you know, our entire quantum forward, the universe forward. And we're creating new pathways, new opportunities, new possibilities. And so I really love the reframe, and thank you greatly for that, because I know that a lot of people that are open and aware are using language like spiritual warfare. Because I know even in the way that I frame the chaos that's happening on earth, I do say words like psychological warfare, right? So it's like it's embedded in the way that we perceive things. And I think these sorts of perception shifts are so important, that we can witness it as a creative deconstruction of what's no longer serving us and creating space for something to come through, which in my deepest belief for humanity, my deepest belief is that a matriarch-led society is what's urging to come through in so many ways. So that's my long-winded way of saying thank you so much for that beautiful perception shift. I know many women will value that. And I would love to know a little bit more, because I love that you've got the perspective of your grandmother. I'm assuming it's your grandmother, but your grandmother, your mother, and yourself, and everyone's got their own different journey. For those of us who don't know you, because most of us won't know you, can you give a little bit more clarity on what your gifts are and how they came to be? And then at some point, it would be nice to know the difference between your gifts, your mum's gifts, and your grandmother's gifts as well.
Absolutely. And before I dive into my story, I think what you've brought up there around common expression and the matriarchal led society is so powerful. So I just want to just acknowledge that for a second, and also add, I'm not saying that the word warfare is bad. I think words like warfare, bringing awareness to the issues, to the patriarchal dominance, to this beautiful feminine matriarchal restructuring that I also believe the world needs, is so powerful. And sometimes words like warfare, or seeing the destruction that's happening and the rebirth and the reorganization that needs to happen, is so powerful because it gets us into motion. So I certainly am not saying, oh, we should always look at the positive, balanced side, and we shouldn't use the word warfare. I think warfare has a beautiful, powerful, catalytic meaning, but it's like a warfare, and like there's always the creation on the other side of the destruction. There's always the inspiration, the what more can we deepen into, can we tap into, can we create, and can we remember? Because I think a big part of my work, which will lead me into talking about my gifts, is I work across the intersection of three things. The first is rebellion, but feminine, sacred knowing rebellion, like being brave enough to say the things that we've always wanted to say, to remove the masks that we've always worn, to kind of like just slice off this little piece of ourselves to fit in here, or just, I'm not going to talk about that thing because those people over there might not like it. Like just that softening and that masking that happens. Like I'm all about stepping into that. No, this is who I am, and these are my gifts, and this is my sexuality, my confidence, the things that I believe in. I'm willing to put my energy and my spirit and my soul behind those things to show the world. Because the more that I do that, the more other women, men, everybody on whoever you identify as this beautiful soul human, you're willing to do that as well. So it's like this beautiful energy of rebellion or sovereignty that comes and connects with, again, we don't talk about sexuality often. We don't talk about, like, this is how I feel sensually, powerfully, but not for you, for me. Like feeling sexy, feeling passionate, feeling desired for yourself in your body, coming home to your body. And I'll touch on the journey that I've been with my body in a moment, which is really solidifying that. But those two things are just separate siloed things within us if we don't have spirituality, if we don't have our connection to something, whether that's God, as I mentioned, universe, angels, guides, whatever words or energy. Sometimes for people, it's just energy, it's ether. If we don't have those three things, it's really difficult for us to remember and own who we are as a soul on this planet. And so having these beautiful catalysts to start owning that, whether we're using awareness like warfare or different things that are happening in the world, I think it's all powerful, and it all gets us back into our body, into our soul, to do the work that we're here to do. Which brings me through. So these three things, these three pillars, I call it the sexy rebel spirit. They're like the three things that all of my work kind of sort of sits on, and we oscillate and we connect those three things together to become these powerful, beautiful, mystical, divine souls to do this work on this planet. My gifts, really, I have been wanting to try and figure out the label of them, and there is no label, but I am a seer. So I have all of my clair senses open. So I have clairvoyance, I can see, I have clairaudience, I hear, claircognizance, I know, I feel, I can smell, I can taste, like all of my psychic based or clair, I call them clair sensitivities, are open. And that has taken time and a willingness to trust that my body, my soul, my energy is connected to that greater ether that I was just talking about. And so I have all of my clairs open. And one of the things that I made a commitment to a few years ago was just, if I have these gifts, be in service of the energy of God, of the universe, to help others realize that as humans, because we are souls, because we are made of energy, we all have different gifts. We all have all of the gifts, but we have beautiful, different, unique ways of tapping into them, of channeling them into who we are and what we do, and using them as we move through the world. But as I mentioned, up until probably mid to late 30s, they were kind of like, I'm just intuitive, or I'm empathic, or I feel things, I'm highly sensitive. And it wasn't a real ownership of, no, I have all of these gifts. I have psychic foresight. I can channel. Spirit can move into my form on my behalf, or I can speak on behalf of spirit. I have these beautiful gifts, and it took time and trust to know that it's actually safe, and it's actually beautifully divine and part of the human experience to start to awaken and own these gifts. I also do a lot of shamanic based stuff, so I can not only see and translate energy, but I can work and move and shift energy as well. I can see the energy fields. One of the things that I use to help describe sometimes what the energy looks like is, if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, and you remember the opening titles with all the green things falling down. So they, like, when I'm tapping into a field, I can see all of their energy moving, whether it's in someone's body or someone's field, or just in the etheric field itself. And not just that, but these are some of the ways in which I have allowed myself to soften and trust this process of being a highly attuned, beautiful body that can tap into these things. And so I use my gifts in so many ways. I have a space called the Sexy Rebel Spirit, where I, every day, am just receiving, pouring, just receiving, serving, pouring. And so I will often just act as a messenger or a translator to bring through what is sitting in the field that someone needs to hear. Or I might work with someone deeply, shamanically, to shift something. Or I have a lot of clients that come to me and say, I want to open, like I can feel that there's something here. I can feel that I'm picking up on stuff, but I'm still in a bit of doubt or fear or worry or thinking I'm going nuts. Like, let me open, help me trust myself again, and come back to my body. And so we will work together deeply on unlocking that. And that will combine a lot of different gifts and modalities and things that I have trained in. Most of the stuff, I have some formal training, but most of the stuff is remembrance, past life remembrance, gift remembrance. And the more that we surrender into who we are and into that trust, that deep trust of self, the more that our gifts just come online, and we're like, oh, I remember how to do this. Like, nobody taught me, but I remember how to do this. And so I just move through the world now, not needing to use a gift in a certain way, just being open and surrendered enough to be like, what does this situation, person, environment need? And let me just be surrender and open and use whichever part of the way the energy wants to come to me and move through me to serve that. And so it can look very different on different days, which makes it hard to kind of pop it into a title, but it is just so, the feeling of being surrendered and really in tune with your gifts, there's nothing like it. And I personally believe that there is no one way. Like, there is only your way. And that's one of the things that I love to work with clients on, is like, I'm not going to teach you these are the 5 steps to clairvoyance, or here's the textbook guide of what clairaudience looks like and how to open it. It's like, no, let's open it your way. Let's use it your way, which is going to be different to hers and hers and his and hers. And so that's the philosophy and the way that I work with my gifts in this space. And I'll pause there just in case there's anything you want to unpack there before I dive into how that compares to the other beautiful women in my lineage.
I love this. I think just being in your presence as well, the women will feel the magnetism and the joy and the expansion. It's just so peaceful being in your presence, even though there's a lot of energy pulsating through. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And I wanted to just ask, because you mentioned about coming back to the body and you mentioned sexuality and that you had your own experience. And I wanted to make sure that that experience was shared before we talk about the beautiful women in your life.
Yes, absolutely. So my journey with my body, like a lot of women, has been very, very tumultuous. So I feel like I came out of the womb and was like, I don't want to be in this body. That is an experience of so many of us. I know there are women who are listening that can relate to this, but there has always been this spiritual and physical disconnect to wanting to be in this body. And I think my soul chose this journey and this experience, so there's no mistakes. But this feeling of disconnection has just manifested itself in so many different ways. So I had, I'll pop a trigger warning here, just if anyone needs to mute or pause, as I'm going to go into some assault-based stuff. But when I was going through puberty, there were some significant sexual assault things that happened to me, which just kind of kept that fracturing happening of it not being safe to be in a body. I don't like this body. This body doesn't feel good. This body is the object of other people. And so this kind of like conditioning and narrative started to swirl in my poor little body in my field when I was very young, that when I went through puberty, I only ever developed one breast on one side. So I had a fully developed breast on one side and a no breast on the other side. And you can imagine, if you're a woman and you've experienced puberty, which we all have, how horrifying puberty is in terms of fitting in, trying to love yourself. And so I had this fracturing, and then I had my body responding in this way that was like continuing to deepen this separation that I was experiencing with myself. And so when I got to the age of 18, after just battling eating disorders, anxiety, depression, all of these things, I made the choice to balance and correct my body with an implant on one side and a reconstruction on the other side, to start to try and feel normal, to feel feminine, to start to feel like I could love myself, right? And I had to go to the medical industry to have that augmentation done because I didn't have the skills at the time to be able to love my body and who I was. And so I went through that, and the surgery was wonderful. I had an incredible plastic surgeon and I looked normal. But the fracturing already happened. And there was a few more severe assault things that happened in my lifetime, which were the result of decision making based on someone who just didn't love her body and needed to weaponize her sexuality or her body to feel love, to feel value, to feel worth. And there were a few very significant incidents that just kept like knocking me further and further away from my love of myself. And I actually, when I was younger, I was bi. Like I had this beautiful attraction to women's form and men's form. But growing up in that period of the 90s and 2000s, it was like, we don't talk about that. We're only boy crazy. We're only this, we're only that, like these categories of trying to feel like you're normal to fit in, that you just kind of like put the lid on all of these things. Fast forward decades and years and of trying to be successful and being in the corporate career and doing all the right things, living in the right places. this fracturing kept happening that about 5 years ago, so 2021, I think it was, my body shut down again. I had to have a full hysterectomy. So these parts of myself that helped define me, the last kind of threads that were defining me as a woman, my body was like, oh, no, like too much trauma is happening here. We need to keep shedding. And at the time I didn't see it, but it was like this stripping back and shedding of all these things that I'd kind of held on to so dearly, as like, breasts make me a woman, a uterus makes me a woman, like being attractive to men makes me a woman, like all of these things, the universe just kept stripping them back. And as it did, my intuition got a little bit stronger. My gifts got a little bit deeper. My trust in myself, even although I still wasn't in love with my body and I still wasn't owning who I was as a woman, these spiritual gifts and these spiritual doors kept starting to open, these portals. And I was like, okay, well, I remember sitting on the couch with the recovery of the hysterectomy, and I took a little course on, start your business in 30 days kind of thing. And in that course, we started to have to really think about, like, what is our zone of genius? What do people naturally come to us for? And I was like, intuition. People are always coming to me for the seeing the unseen. And so I started this little consulting business, intuitive business consulting from my couch whilst being unable to get up and walk for $10 an hour. And it was like the door, these portals starting to open of my spiritual gifts, my mysticism, my connection starting to open, because I was stripping back, the starting of the stripping back of what I thought I needed to love myself and to be a woman. And then we fast forward again another 6 years. January this year, I found out that I have significant, severe silicon poisoning and a potential lymphoma diagnosis, because the implants that they used back in 19, whatever it was, that I had the original augmentation done, they'd been recalled, and they were causing lymphoma and cancer in women all around the world. And I didn't know. They'd been recalled like 5, 6, 7 years prior, and I never knew, but I was so sick. And again, on January 2nd this year, Spirit stepped forward again and like, there's more stripping back. Now we need to take them. And we need to take the implant out. You need to go back to the original tiny little breast that you had on that side, and we're going to have to take the other one, because otherwise you're going to be lopsided. And so 3 weeks ago, and 3 weeks post-op, now I had to go in and worked with this incredible, beautiful artisan of a surgeon who specializes in working with women who have cancer and have to have this shedding happening for their health, and went through this beautiful journey of spirit once again saying, you need less. You need less to love yourself. Like the things that we think that we need to love ourselves as women are just things. Like it's actually what is inside of us that is the most important thing. And so again, I said to Source and God, I'm like, okay, I will go through this shedding. I will release. I will take off. And I don't want them to put anything back in. I just want to come back to my body, because now is the time to really return to owning my sexuality, my confidence, but not for the world, for me. Like I want to be able to look in the mirror and just love this body. Like from all that way back in birth, when I came out of the womb and was like, I don't want to be in this body. Like, please take me somewhere else. I really want to just love being in this body, because this body and owning my sexuality, my femininity, knowing that I am whole no matter what I look like. Again, the gifts, the spirituality, the connection, the rebellious spirit, doing the work that I'm here to do just continues to deepen and open. So the more that we surrender, the more that we shed, the more that we're brave enough to let go of the things that we think that we need, or society tells us to need, that we need, the more whole and returning and remembered we become. So that's how these beautiful three things come together, and that is the journey that I'm at with my body. And I will say, Samantha, I will say, like, I had to take the dressings off yesterday, and I saw, and I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And there's still these waves of trauma and grief that come up, like the memory of feeling deformed as a teenager, and like having to go through the first surgery and then feeling like a woman to then like have to strip it back again. Like there's still this beautiful outpouring that happens, but it's done like with source, with my angel team, with my ancestors. Like it's like I am healing this for the whole lineage, forwards and backwards, and every woman that I will come in contact with and work for. Like that grief and that trauma and that outpouring, it happens, but every time you cry and every time you shed, you come back and you're like, oh, there you are. I see you. I love you. I've got you. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And you just find that next level of love for yourself as you continue to move through it all.
Thank you for sharing that story. It's so important. It's so important. Thank you for your vulnerability in sharing that. So many women, if not all women, associate their worth and their ability to love themselves based on their physical body and how it performs and how it presents, because that's what we're conditioned to do as women in order to exist in this society, in order to fit in order to function. We have to look a certain way and love ourselves a certain way. And the stripping back of your story is just a really clear indication of it's not even about the body. The body is here to have an experience. Your body is here to have many experiences, and learning to love beyond the meat suit is a really big part of that. And I know as I was listening to your story, I was linking in with my own, and I'm thinking, I've had massive disconnection from my body. There was no love for my body ever. And then I'm like tuning in going, but do I love who's behind the body? Like, can I love my soul, my spirit? And I'm like, I love her so much. Like, I love her so much. I'm so proud of her. And then it's sort of, I'm like, if I could tap into that, and if women could tap into that, that would shine through the physical and it would start to merge. And it's less about what we look like and it's more about how we feel. And it just, your story just really landed a really beautiful piece of my story, and I imagine many women who are listening as well. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I love that you've said that, because honestly, that choosing to love my soul like you are choosing to love your soul, that is the key to what opened the gifts. That is the key that opened to the self-love. Like I remember, like all of us, done all the diets, done all the workout regimes. I have DVDs littered of like the latest workout program and like downloads that I've bought of like, the keto whatevers, because I was trying to change the physical form to then be able to love and spiritually connect from it. It's like I was trying to do the one thing over the other. But what you said is 100% my experience as well, is that I chose to be like, no, this soul, I remember this feeling of power, of grace, of love, because source and energy, it's pure love. And so choosing to remember that slowly permeates through. There is no way I would have gone through this surgery, this most recent stripping back, as well as I had if I hadn't have chosen to tap into my soul remembrance first. It would have been a completely different experience for me. I 100% know that.
I believe that too, right? It's all about the deconstruction and deconditioning of our current reality in order to be able to see beyond what we perceive. So I love that. And I thank you. And I know that it's still raw. I know that you're still going through the emotions because, hey, I also feel like women forget that we're human and we're not supposed to, and we're not allowed to experience emotions and discomfort and fear and sadness and anger and frustration and disappointment. It's like, well, I've just got to focus on the positive. And it's like, oh, hang on a second. Yes, you're a spirit having a soul, having a human experience, but you're also a human. So you're allowed to actually be disappointed and sad and angry and frustrated that this is a part of your reality. And I wanted to say thank you for being human and sharing that aspect of us and giving women permission to, like, It's okay. You can be angry. It's not going to be a detriment to your future. If anything, it's going to ground you into the possibilities, because you get to come back home to yourself and go, hang on a minute, I'm human. It's okay. I got this. And now I can move forward with a different solution, with a different perspective, because I allowed myself to feel my feelings because I'm human. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. I love that you just brought up anger, because sometimes we are so good at like keeping a lid on feelings, or we feel them, but we feel the safe ones. Like sadness is usually a fairly safe feeling, or, a few other emotions, like we're like, these are the safe emotions, but these ones are not safe. And we keep a nice lid on those ones. Sometimes anger, and this is a strong part of my story too, anger can be the gateway to starting to feel, to starting to actually crack open those cages and be like, there is more here for me to access and feel. There are all these parts of myself that I've kind of been like keeping or juggling in a way that society deems necessary, or I can present in a safe way to those around me. But sometimes anger can be the gateway that just cracks you open enough to be like, enough. There's more here. There's more to excavate. I don't like this. I don't like that. And with that energy of I don't like comes again in this, back to the start of creation, destruction. Like anger can be seen in the destruction, but it also then opens the doorway to creation. It's like, what do I want? Actually, I do want to own the fact that I don't need to have a certain body to love myself. Actually, I do want to own the fact that I love both men and women equally, and I want that to be okay. Or I do want to actually get behind this incredible cause, movement, thing that I want to change about the world, and I want to have my power of my voice behind that. Like, that's the creation energy that comes out of feeling the feelings, which sometimes anger can be the doorway to. The trick is to not just stay in the anger, because we can stay in that destructive energy because we're not brave enough to flip into the creation. We're not brave enough to sense what is bigger, coming back to this sense of mysticism, of energy. We aren't necessarily brave enough because of what people will say, what people will think. Is it real? Like, these kinds of questions keep us blocking our ability to connect into what exists around us, so that we can then harness that creative energy to do what it is that we're here to do on this planet in this lifetime. So women can be afraid of anger. I've been told once, my stepmom said to me, I was really feeling my feelings. I was going through a big transitional period as my soul, and my stepmom said to me, she's like, oh, you're so angry. You've got anger issues. Like, you should go and see someone. You've got anger issues. And when she said it, I felt like it broke me, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be an angry person. I'm a nice person. I'm an empathic person. I'm intuitive. Like, like, I didn't have spirituality as part of me at that point. But I thought I was a good human. And so when she's like, you've got anger issues, I was like, well, I can't do that. I don't want to have that label on me. So again, tamped it down. But I realized a little while later, I was like, no, that anger is because my soul is finally speaking to me loud enough for me to start cracking open all of this other stuff. And it was like this beautiful catalyst that happened from that, of being like, well, no, I'm angry, but I'm angry because I'm not listening to myself, which I am translating as being angry at you or the world, or things like that. So thank you for bringing that into the space, because it's part of this incredible, powerful, mystical creation destruction cycle.
Yes, thank you for speaking to this. So when I was exploring the Rebel Matriarch mission that I'm building early on, and I was being mentored by someone, and she was like, what is it that you want? Like just tell me. I can't remember the question. But what came through was, we need more angry women. I'm like, we need an angry woman rebellion. And at the time, I was fired up, but I didn't understand the depth and importance of that statement of needing more angry women. Because for me at the time, it was like I needed a release. I needed to be angry because I was holding so much that I couldn't, the emotions and everything, it was becoming too much. And I just needed to be angry. I needed an outlet. But in the process over the last 8 months, I did something called the Shame Monologues, where I had a few women in a Telegram group, and I spent 31 days every single day speaking about all the different shame that I was experiencing or I had witnessed, and just processing through so much shame. And then the processing of so much shame, there were so many moments where I got really angry, and I was able to speak that anger and like the rage and the emotions, like it was like a visceral experience. And then at the end of that 31 days, I was a completely new woman. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is my purpose. This is what I'm here to do. I'm more connected with myself. I'm less connected with my trauma. Like everything shifted through the process of actually giving myself a space to experience my anger. And then now that with everything that's happening, the chaos that's happening in the world, and there are a lot of women that are going, hang on a minute, we're actually really angry about this, and they're starting to speak to this. And whilst there are healthy and helpful ways of doing it, and maybe not so healthy and helpful ways that are being done, is irrelevant. The fact that women are recognizing their power, and then this conversation, and I'm like, oh, I feel like we need to create like a space where women can come and actually express their anger in a safe space with the intention of it being a deconstruction and a creation of something new to allow something new to come through. So, sorry, I just went blah, 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 blah. But I'm just feeling so fired up and so passionate about what you're speaking to, because I know every single woman is holding back and containing her anger. And there is so much trauma that women have experienced of their own that they've witnessed in their children and in through their ancestors and their lineage. There is so much anger that needs to be released as a portal for creation for something that is a matriarch-led society. Like, honestly, it really is. It feels like the birthing of a matriarch-centered, woman-centered, child-centered, human-centered, man-centered society, that all this anger is coming through. And I'm just like, I'm here for the ride. And I'm absolutely loving this conversation. So thank you.
Oh, of course. Look, there's always a reason why we connect, right? And like your mission, my mission, it's like this beautiful lining up, because I agree 100% with everything that you've just said. And shame keeps us silent so often. And usually it's like self-constructed shame. It's like shame that we think if we do this thing, if we say this thing, if we embody this raw, beautiful part of ourselves, someone's going to reject it, or someone's going to say this, or such and such is going to act in this way. And we have no evidence of it. Sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't have the evidence of it, but it keeps us trapped in this kind of like, I can't say this thing, I can't admit to doing this thing, or I can't admit to feeling this way. And it just keeps us stuck. And it's really hard coming back to the fact that we are all these beautiful, highly connected spiritual beings. It's really hard to be like, okay, I'm going to open, I'm going to soften, I'm going to listen, I'm going to receive from a source, spiritual ancestor, guides, angels perspective, if we're like, but not this thing here that I'm terrified of admitting, or I'm really angry about, or I'm sort of ashamed of. Like, it's really hard to let the full stream of the beautiful energy come into us and move through us, especially through the voice, to be the voice piece of these such important matriarchal movements that are needed, this coming together of, like you say, angry women, yes, but it's like unencumbered, remembered, free women who are not afraid to be angry or say what needs to be said. It's really hard for women to connect and find each other and come together and lead these things that are needed to be led if we're like carrying around this armload of shame that is blocking our spirituality and blocking our connection, but also having a voice that's like half open. It's like, I am willing to be angry and talk about these things except for the stuff that makes me shameful or feel shame because someone may or may not have a judgment around this. And I think the most powerful thing about women being brave enough to finally speak and share their voices, the thing that they've been afraid of or shameful of, is that so many women go, "Yep, me too. Thank you for saying that. Oh my gosh, you experienced that as well. Gosh, if you can say it, I can say it." And it just like catalyzes this incredible common experience that so many women have, but we're not talking about because we're like, shh, don't talk about that. To talk about that shameful thing because Bernie down the road might have an opinion about it, or someone on the internet might leave me a negative comment. It's like, yeah, there's always going to be the Bernies. I don't know where the name Bernies come from, by the way. That just popped
Like
into
it's
my
a
field.
redo on Karen.
Yeah. You know, someone on the internet or down the street is always going to have an opinion, but it doesn't matter because the other people that it catalyzes is what we're here for. The other people that it awakens and helps catalyze their remembrance. And then this coming together to really change society and lead in this beautiful, matriarchal is one word, but feminine, connected, conscious way is really what is needed.
1,000 million billion %. Yes, it is. I'm so grateful for this conversation. Because honestly, this conversation could go on and on. It's something that I'm passionate about, something that you're passionate about, and something that so many women need to hear. And so we may need to come back to this conversation. And at the same time, I also really want to hear about your story, and I want to hear about what it was like growing up with two beautiful, powerful women who remembered their powers and their gifts. So I would love to do a slight detour into your magic and your gifts if you would oblige.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I want to frame is that even although I'm third generation, we do know the energy line just from accessing the Akashic record and past lifelines and looking at the energy streams. Third generation is like human vernacular or human rhetoric around women in my line that have like, I've got something going on here and I've kind of got it, right? But this energy goes back a long way, and it also goes back a long way in past lives. There's been a lot of lives that I've lived as a soul with different expressions doing this work. So this is kind of like this lifetime is like this beautiful culmination of remembrance of these things. Now, I also want to frame my mother's mother was intuitive, and so was her mother, but they lived in a time where it was like, we don't talk about it. It is not acknowledged. She would have kind of like experiences, but it was like, no, that didn't happen. Or that's not, like, no, we don't talk about that. Or there was always an explanation or something. So we know that she was starting to awaken, but she lived in a time when it wasn't acceptable. She was also highly religious. She ended up following her path into a particular religion. I can't remember the name, Jehovah's Witness, right? In her lifetime towards the more later part of her adult life. And so they had very specific rules and expectations. That's where she found her place and her peace. And so she had these beautiful gifts, but set this precedent of we don't talk about it, we don't acknowledge it. And so then when my mother was a child, she had all of these gifts very, very early on. She used to get visitations of her grandmother and great-grandmother. She used to feel things, know things, sense things, but not only because of the time, but because of her mother and the religion that was sort of circling the family at the time. Again, it was like, this is not safe, this is not talked about. So it was closed down. And she has a beautiful story, and she can go into more depth about it. But again, in her sort of 30s, around similar age to me, she got invited to like a meditation circle, or these intuitive things started happening, or a girlfriend would say, oh, I'm going to this event, or I'm doing this thing, or a book would fall on her lap, or, like the universe started bringing her ways for her to remember these gifts, because she was moving into that period of the early 90s where the new age was still underground, but there were more meditation circles happening. There were more women's circles. There was more things that you could kind of go to behind closed doors still, but you could go to start, working with a psychic mentor, a meditation leader, and opening those gifts. And so what that meant for me was that I saw and I was around someone that had a big, beautiful aura and gifts, who was starting to open them. But I watched her do it from the meditation circle that she had to go to the lady's house for, that, we couldn't tell the family about, or like the in-laws couldn't mention that we were doing this on the weekend because the in-laws would have an opinion about it. And, she started a crystal jewelry business and a crystal collection that she would sell at markets. And so we were in this two-speed dance of like having spirituality and conversations, and she would do meditations for me to help me fall asleep as a child, and we'd have discussions around source and intuition and connection at home, and we'd be at the markets around crystals and talking about energy on the weekend. But then society, school, work, family, the common person on the street, it was like, oh, we don't talk about that. And so I had this two-speed of like, I know I am in this place, in this field, and I have these gifts because my mother has these gifts, and we talk about them, but at the same time, we don't talk about them. And so when I hit this puberty stage, coming back to my story before, where it started to become very difficult to love myself and fit in, and I was having all these body issues and all that sort of stuff, I was like, well, I am not bringing spirituality and gifts into this mix as well, because that's just going to make me even weirder, stranger kid than I am. And I just want to have a boyfriend. I just want to be normal, and I just want to be cool. Like, essentially those three things I had defined as the make or break at that time, and was just going to ignore and clamp down on everything else. And so I went through life still being empathic and intuitive, because you really can't, you can fully switch them off, but you can't. Like, your soul will always find ways to bring these gifts to you, whether you like cry at everything, or whether you can feel something about someone before they tell you, or you just know a piece of information, or you experience deja vu. Like, even if you're like, nope, I don't want a bar of it, mysticism, occult, like all of these negative connotations that often go with these gifts, like, I'm going to shut that down and I'm going to put that away. The universe will always find little ways to help you remember. And so that would happen, but I was very, progressing really strongly in the corporate world. I was in marketing, I was in corporate strategy, I was a futurist at some point, where I would work with data and trends and all the stuff that you could prove, but the universe would keep finding ways for it to come to me. And at the same time, my mom, independently, even though, we're beautifully connected, but independently, she was on her own journey of the universe bringing her more things and attending more stuff, and like, going to a party and saying, well, I'm a psychic medium. Or, we did this public speaking boot camp together, which was a really intensive 3-day learn how to like use your voice in a very kind of like atypical way, but like stage presence, confidence, story showing, like get on the stage, and they had film cameras and like tell your story. And my mom got up there, and it was the first time I'd heard her publicly on camera to a live audience say, like, I think she said something like, you might not believe me, but I see dead people, like, like in this beautiful cavalier way. But she went on to tell this powerful story of her being a medium. Like, she was on this parallel journey as well in her own life around starting to publicly be brave enough to say, this is real. this is what I can do, and using her gifts and really building her business. And I was on the same trajectory. Like I said, when I had the hysterectomy and I was on forced leave and I literally could not walk, Samantha, I couldn't walk. My recovery was so severe from that surgery that my husband did everything. And I sat on the couch and was just like, all right, let's go. Like, let's baby steps tell the world that these are the gifts that I have. And it just continued to open. And I think what's really powerful is we often think that we're going to have the same gifts as our parents or as our lineage. But as I mentioned earlier, we all use and work with energy in such a unique way. I believe it's like a fingerprint. The way that my mom works with energy and channels, she does a lot of work with helping people cross over or helping those that are left here on the physical plane connect with their loved ones to move through trauma. She does a lot of trauma work, a lot of like work to help grieving people find peace and love and do all of the healing work. She's trained in a bunch of modalities as well. She's a psychic surgeon. She has an incredible gift set to really help people in grief and trauma move into that free state. And really, she's a trance medium. She's does a lot of different things with spirit coming through of past loved ones to really make those connections. It's called bridging across. She's like, I'm the bridge across to the people to help them pass over. And we assume that because I'm of her lineage, my gifts should be exactly the same, but they're so different. And we use them in different ways because we've both given ourselves permission to find our own path through the energy in our own unique way through our remembrance, rather than being like, well, my mom does that, so I should do that. Otherwise, I am less than, or I am not as good as. It's like we're both so powerful, but we allow ourselves to express that and use that in different ways. And often we'll come together. If we are asked to by spirit or source, we'll come together and work with someone from different perspectives. Or if I have a client that I know her energy is better for, like I will say, Mom, like here is this person, or I will do the handover and vice versa, because there's a role for each of us to play and there is no competition in this space. It's all just energy and it's all just pure service for the love of service. But I will say, having grown up around someone who was willing, even if it was behind closed doors, who was willing to be brave enough to be like, what is this feeling? What is this thing that I'm feeling inside me that I need to explore? I'm so grateful for that, because so many of us don't have those role models in our life to just give us that tiny little bit of permission or role modeling to say, like, you can do this too.
Your mom sounds incredible. She sounds amazing. I love the bravery. I love brave women because I know how hard it is to be brave and courageous. And so when I hear stories about women who are brave and courageous, I'm just like, there is a kinship there and so much respect as well. So I'm hoping that we get to have this conversation with your mum too, because that would be amazing. And for you, because you went through the phase of like, no, I don't want to be weird. And then you came into, was it your 30s or your mid 30s? Did something happen that you were like, hang on a minute, I'm done like disregarding this huge part of me? What was that pivotal point for you?
Yes, there was. It was, I had made choices up until that point in my life based on what I thought was right, based on what I thought was societally acceptable. And I had entered a relationship at that time, an engagement, that I chose to sacrifice myself to, that I chose to strip away parts of myself. I remember on our first date, I used to go by the name Andy, like forever. My pet name from my family, my friends, everyone's always called me Andy. And I was in the Andy energy at that time. And on our first date with this person, he looked at me and said, Andy is a boy's name. I refuse to call you that. I'm going to call you Andrea. And so not only did he change Andrea to Andrea, he told me that no, categorically, you are not. This is this, and I'm choosing to see you and refer to you in this way. And I nodded and went, oh, okay. And so this relationship became about taking this part of myself out. He didn't believe in spiritual. So it was like, don't ever use the word intuition or gut feeling, like this stripping off of myself to have someone to love me, which was the pattern that had been throughout my entire life since childhood, since these early incidences, this need to like, okay, I will do whatever you need to so that you love me, so that I can feel like I'm not alone or abandoned or worthless in this world. It's like, oh, you want to call me that? Sure. You want me to wear that? Sure. You don't want me to do that anymore? Or, you know, like he didn't like certain friends, so I just cut them. It was just like, oh, okay, sure. You know, good girl, do all of the things. And that relationship led me to stripping away so many parts of myself that one day I realized I didn't know who I was anymore, and hit that kind of rock bottom of like, what have I done? Because the stripping away can happen so subtly that you don't know that you're doing it until you get so far down the track that you're just like, why do I have these friends? And why am I behaving in this way? Why am I wearing this? Like, why is my hair a certain way? That I just hit this emotional, spiritual rock bottom. And mum and I signed up to go to this public speaking thing. It was a random room that we ended up in, and someone pitched this 3-day public speaking course, and my mom intuitively knew that we had to do it. And I'm just sitting there being like, yeah, I can't afford it. And next thing I know, I'm looking around and she's missing. She's gone up to the back of the room and she's put her credit card down. She's paid for both of us to go to this public speaking thing. And I'm just like, she comes back and I'm like, where'd you go? Did you go to the bathroom? She's like, oh no, I just signed us up for this course. Spirit told me that we need to do it. And I was like, what? Yeah. I was angry. I was like, what do you mean? I don't want to do some public speaking. I can't afford it. What am I going to tell my fiance? Because it was like $4,000 or something. I'm like, what am I going to tell him that I've just spent $4,000? She's like, well, you can pay me back, you know, like he doesn't have to know, but we're doing it. We're doing it. And I was like, God, you know, typical, you know, my mom's still controlling my life, you know, like I'm 30. My mom shouldn't be telling me what to do. Anyway, life changing. So through that boot camp weekend, it was so intense, Samantha. It was that you go and you do your classes during the day and you write your speech and then you practice it overnight because you're on stage delivering it to a live audience the next morning cold turkey, right? And so there was this pressure cooker of these 3 days of wanting, of needing to finally open the throat chakra, which I had never really opened up until this point. I'd only really ever said safe things or what other people wanted, or like had stripped back parts of me to like play this beautiful puppet of the perfect person, whether it was the work context or the home context. And so it was this ripping open of the throat chakra in this 3-day weekend of like, here's a live audience. And the only criteria is you have to say something that's true. Your speech has to be about something that's true. We don't want you to sell something. We don't want you to like make up a story or just do like a tap dancey thing. Like you have to come and talk about something that's true, which is why mum chose finally being brave enough to claim that she was a psychic medium. And mine was, because I hadn't owned it at that time, I was battling with severe eating disorders and I was struggling with body dysmorphia and just, like I said, feeling like I didn't know who I was. I was a stranger in my body. And so I was talking about that. And through that weekend, it was so intensive, like learning about speaking and body language, writing, presenting, then going back in to like deepen and then present again. And then the camera was on you and then like live audience. And the last day we had to do this big, like full production crew, lighting, big audience, like stage presentation. And the night before I had an absolute meltdown of, I can't do this. Who am I to own this? Like, people, I don't even love myself. Who's going to want to love me on this stage? And I'd write it and I practiced and practiced and practiced. And I woke up in the morning after having this massive meltdown and eating everything I could find, binging, like bulimia, like all of the triggers. Like when you are in that triggered state, like all of the stuff was online. The things that I was trying to be brave enough to express were like in my face that night. And I went to bed crying myself to sleep. And the next morning I got to the stage in the center, and I was fairly early in the lineup, and I just said to the organizers, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not brave enough. I'm in this like purging eating thing at the moment. Like, my whole body is shutting down. I cannot do it. And they said, that's okay. But if you change your mind, if you're in the audience and you change your mind, just wave to us and you walk straight up there and you deliver it. And that's what happened. Everybody went through, and I was sitting there and I was saying, just out of nowhere, I just started praying, and I was just like, please God, like, can you be with me? Can you help me do this? I know this will change my life if I can do this. Can you please, guides, angels, ancestors, grandmother, like everyone, please, can you surround me so that I can do this? I don't want to fail this. I don't want to be a failure. And I just sat there. And then for the first time, this first real channel opening in my field happened. I'd kind of had it up until this point, but this big channel opened, and all of a sudden I got told, grab the pen, get some scrap pieces of paper and start writing. And so I'm sitting there in the audience watching these women and men on stage giving their presentations, whilst like furiously, like without even thinking, just like automatically writing the speech down across these like ripped pieces of paper. And then I sat there and I just looked at them, and I said, Spirit, can you please put these in my body? I want to do this. And then the last speaker went, I put my hand up, and I just felt this big push, and I'm like, right, okay, I'm going. And so I got up there and I delivered, somehow between the automatic writing and the channel opening of what I needed to say, and then the reading of it, I had memorized and absorbed these words, and I got up to stage and delivered this incredible speech. It still gives me goosebumps now. This incredible speech about the night before's breakdown and eating and how it felt and the failure and the like what it meant to be this woman and blah 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 blah. And I ended up with a standing ovation, and it was that first time, that cracking open of, there is more here that I'm meant to do, not only with my voice, but with whatever it is that I am connected to. And this bravery that I didn't realize I had, that is now awakening. And ever since I went to that boot camp, I was in the wash of like the spiritual awakening of like, oh, I think things are open and now life has to change. Basically, my relationship completely broke down within a matter of months. After that, I started going to, this lady had tea and tarot days where she'd bring these beautiful women together at a kitchen table with like cups of tea and oracle and tarot decks, and we'd all just pick a card and like read for each other. Like, my soul just started finding these ways to start opening and remember. It's not opening and developing, it was remembering this stuff. And it was all because my mom signed us up for a public speaking boot camp that pushed me to the absolute limit of finally having to reclaim myself and use my voice. And it never stopped from that point.
What a story. What an experience. I was all emotional. I was getting all teared up as well when you said you went up and you got a standing ovation. And I was like full body tingles of remembering your power, remembering who you are. And I feel like that brings deeper meaning, because there's that saying, right? We talk about it a lot in spirituality, in personal development, like remember who you are. But when you speak about it from this context, it's not that we're developing, it's not that we're learning, it's literally remembering, because we're not just this one version of self. We're many, we're lifetimes, we're our entire lineage, and it's remembering all of that and then channeling that and amplifying that and refining that in this version of our existence. And so when you say remembering, it really opens up a really big portal for me, and I hope many others as well. What a great story. You are a phenomenal woman, incredibly gifted, and I would love it if you're open to it to ask some questions. There's I'd love to know a little bit about like the collective, but also the beautiful women inside the school community. And also we have a beautiful VIP who may potentially have a question. I can check with her now. Lovely. Susanna, if you had a question, if you wanted to write it in, or if you wanted to go unmute and ask, let me know. We can do that in a minute. But I'll just give you a couple of minutes to decide what you want to do. There's no pressure as well. If you don't have a question, that's okay. But if you're open to it, I would love to hear what comes through for you, especially with our conversation today around the female collective and what's happening in the world at the moment, and gearing towards a matriarch-led society.
Absolutely. I'm going to tune in and see, rather than it coming from me, see what's here for us. For so long you have given your voice out to the others. You have allowed them to speak on your behalf. Your voice has been lent out. It's like it's been rented out in exchange for safety, in exchange for peace in the society. You chose to give your voice to the others. They made you feel like what you had to say wasn't incorrect. It wasn't in correct divine order in terms of the control that they were seeking over the community, over the society at the time. And so they lulled you into this sense that they could speak on your behalf the truth of God. They weaponized the church and God to create a sense of safety that made you feel like renting out your voice was in service of God. It was in service of the collective, and that they knew the truth more than you did. They knew the truth more than you did. But dear heart, the truth has always resided within you. It is that remembrance of where you come from. It is in the waters of the womb. Comes from the lineage, the truth that you walk on in terms of the earth. And now is the time for you to take back control of your voice and know and trust that what you have to say is truth, that what you have to say is truth because you have lived it so many times before. The medicine that you used to bring to this realm in different forms still exists within you. It was never forgotten. It was just told to you that it wasn't valid anymore, that it wasn't important. But that medicine that comes not only from the earth and the water, but comes from your hands, that throws through your body, from source, from us, through you, that medicine still exists. And that is truth. So you need to tap back into that remembrance, back into that pattern, and take back the ownership of your voice, because I can tell you now, it is safe to speak. If there was ever a time for you to speak, now is the time. Now is the time, because the women are ready to listen, because they are yearning to remember. They are starting to feel the stirrings within their own medicine of this remembrance of what needs to come to fruition, what needs to come to form in the planet right now. What the planet, what the people, what the souls of this earth are yearning for is the medicine. And you cannot give the medicine if your voice is still being used by others. If others are still speaking on your behalf, are claiming what they think that you need. you need to be brave enough now, and we're surrounding you in this beautiful energy of remembrance. We're surrounding you now to remember that medicine and open that portal, that doorway, that expression of ownership to be able to speak that medicine, because without speaking it, it's only going to perpetuate this illusion of yourself, this smallness, this sameness, this encapsulated, kind of contained good girl energy that doesn't serve the medicine. The medicine is calling to you to have a place to land, to have a channel to move through, and you are blocking it by not having your voice contained within your body, by lending it to others, letting others speak on your behalf, letting influences influence on your behalf, and sitting back and saying, oh, it's okay, they've got this. That's okay, they know better. They have their own truth, but your truth is powerful in terms of the medicine and the change that needs to happen. And so, dear heart, when you sit there and you feel us step forward into your field with something to say, with something to change, remember this message. Remember that we are right here standing beside you, and that your voice has returned to you. That the lease, the contract, the lending, the exchange for safety is complete. It is complete with this intention that you have right here, right now, in this moment, to reclaim your voice. And know that every time it feels shaky, that you feel like the medicine is wrong, that maybe the people don't want to hear, remember these words. Your medicine is what is going to change everything. It is what is going to catalyze the remembrance that is required on this planet right here, right now. And the time is now to speak it. So bring that voice back in. Set that trust within yourself that the contract is complete. Take peace and comfort in that knowing. And allow the energy that you are connected through your unique gifts to start to move, to start to be expressed. Because even if you can't see it initially, the ripple effect that this is going to have right across the collective is catalytic in the next 12 to 24 months. Now is the time. The fact that you are hearing this message is no mistake. We have been surrounding you. You've been starting to sense the presence of something greater. And this is the truth of it. This is the confirmation that what you've been thinking, feeling, and knowing to be true in your medicine and in your need to finally step up and be the brave, bold woman who is ready to express it. This is the confirmation. This is the time, and the healing on this is now complete.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. I think it's such a beautiful, pointed energy that we're all surrounded by. Oh, sorry, just need spirit to step back. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's just such a beautiful reminder sometimes when they step in with this, like, now is the time, the contract is dissolved. And sometimes we hear these things and be like, how and why? And how can things be dissolved so quickly just with an intention or a message like that? But energy has the ability to be created and destructed in, like the tiniest amount of human time. And so when spirit says something is done, it's done. And we can move forward with trust. And I always love that when that happens. And you can find that the change and the shift in yourself when you allow yourself to absorb the message and let spirit in. It's like transformative. So for whoever is listening, just sending you so much love as you journey to really open your voice and back yourself and back your medicine, and know that what you're feeling and thinking and is starting to rise in you, it's real and it's true. And if you follow it, it's going to change everything.
Yes, this is so important. I want to add because as you're channeling that message through, and I'm like, women need to be reminded as well to take a step back, because a lot of what they are speaking, thinking it's their truth, is actually regurgitated information, knowledge that has just been like circulating, and from past generations, from when they were in the womb, from when they were a young child, from when they were growing up as an adult. So much of what we believe is our truth is actually just what we've been told and what we think is our truth. And so I also feel like this is an invitation to step back from the noise, because we have so much access to information now. It's not just newspapers, it's not just books, it's not just the news, there's social media. There are so many ways to receive insights, opinions, information, data. And a lot of the time, we're not paying attention to how it's landing in our body. And so in order for us to really speak our truth, which is so important, we have to actually give ourselves a moment of grace to acknowledge, what is my truth here? Like, do I actually believe this, what I think, what I feel? Do I have questions about this? Do I need to explore this more? I feel like women don't do this at all, because we're so busy and we're so inundated with everyone's truths and everyone's information and opinions and all the rest of it, that we haven't actually had a time or a moment to be like, hang on a minute, what feels right in my body? So many of us don't know. And so your message and what was channeled through by your beautiful spirit team is so imperative. And I feel like it's also our responsibility as women to figure out what our truth is without it being just automatic out of our mouth.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting because they do feel different in the body, and it can feel foreign at first. Like when it's someone else's truth, or it's reticulated content, or it's like, I just need to have an opinion, or I just need to have a stance or an identity that I can fit within so I can move forward, move into my day and get all the things that I have done. That energy, when you do sit with it, and I love that suggestion, when you do sit with it, that feels very different to energy, to source, to your own truth. And it has a different pace, it has a different feeling. I spend, my girlfriend, while I was recovering, she was asking me, she's like, oh, you binging any good TV shows? And I'm like, I spend a lot of time just sitting, listening to the ether. And I know that sounds like madness for anyone who's not used to that, but when you build the muscle to be able to say, like, here's everything that's coming at me, here's the opinion that I've formed to stay safe, here's the identity that I've kind of fit within, but here's this other thing that I hear, sense, know, it feels so different. And the more that we can build the muscle around listening and sensing that, that's when it becomes easier to then bring it in the body and move it through the throat, rather than just taking the external, like you said, the usual program stuff and being like, well, I'm just going to be a voice piece for that because it's easy and it's all I know. It's very, very different. And you can get used to the feeling of what's spirit, what's higher self, what's ancestral. They all have like a slightly different feeling, tingle, buzz, knowing, flavor of speaking. Every time I hear dear heart come through, I'm like, okay, that's guardian angel spirit stuff. Or if I hear this kind of language come in, like that's my grandfather. Or if I get this kind of tingle in this part of my body, that's my brother. That, like this is source, or this is akashic. Like you just get very good at being like, these are the different energy signatures, and here's what my mind is doing over here to, do a usual response to things. And so you do build that muscle of being able to move and work with the energy. And then eventually when you get that portal open, like what Spirit was saying, is like, that's when the real truth side of it comes through, rather than just being a parrot for the things that we're used to saying or believing or having to repeat.
Yes. Yes. Okay, these conversations are so important. Beautiful woman, you are extraordinary. And I would love for as many women who are meant to work with you and connect with you to find you. How is it that we can find you, and how can we work with you? What kind of offerings do you have at the moment for women to work with you?
There are 4 main ways to work with me at the moment, just depending on what your soul is calling and the depth at which you want to go. So the first place, if you want to just be in a space where I can pour into transmissions, channel messages, stories, remembrance of everything to do with you feeling and awakening that sexy, rebellious spirit, the spirituality, the sovereignty, and the sexuality that is you as this human on this planet, the best place to start is in my Sexy Rebel Spirit channel. It's like a private podcast meets a live transmission Q&A space where you just get poured into every single day. And you can start to awaken and activate who you are in that space. That's $111 a month, and you can come and go, stay as long as you like, dip in when your soul feels that is aligned, and then dip out. Like, that is the space to just be in proximity, in the portal of this and my frequency that I hold in this space. Then if you want to go deeper, we can spend a week together. It's called The Encounter, and it's deep. We have multiple calls. We're on Telegram. There's 24-hour Telegram access there, and we just start to really uncover what it is that is ready to start awakening in your way. This is not about you saying, I want to be clairvoyant. Can we spend a week like learning how to be clairvoyant? It's like, let's start stepping in and having a look at your Akashic record, your soul signature, and be like, here are the gifts that are saying to you that want to start be awakening. And we start doing that in your unique way. So it's a great way if you want to spend a week together to start opening that door without having to commit to a big long-term coaching. Or if you're at that point where you're like, I'm ready, I want to spend 6 months cracking open all facets of me, the rebellious nature, the sexy for myself, the loving my body, and amplifying those things through my unique gifts, my connection, my spirituality, then there's a 6-month coaching that we can do that is kind of like that 1 week thing, but over a longer period. So we go deep and we walk together to really open your gifts in only the way that you can and make you this beautiful, in touch, sovereign being who is connected into their gifts in her way or his way, their way, that only you can do, and just using my gifts and my frequency to help break down those barriers for you to be able to trust that. That is a 6-month coaching container, which starts at $55K for 6 months. The 1 week is $3,333. Or if you're just wanting to just have me pour into you, just start with the Sexy Rebel Spirit beautiful transmission space, which is $111 a month. And I have some retreats coming as well later in this year where we can just be in space, in proximity together to just do this live in person. So this, when you put women together in spaces and their frequencies meet and their fields meet, that's when magic happens. And we're able to recalibrate to new levels. So they are coming in the future. If any of that is kind of sparking something in your soul, just send me a DM. I'm on Instagram at Andrea Lee Matthies or Facebook, Andrea Lee Matthies, and I'll get you the links to that. But either way, even if we don't end up working together formally, like just being connected through podcasting, through Instagram. I share a lot of art there, which have got real activation codes behind them to help you really remember who your soul are. It is just beautiful to stay in connection with you, even if it's not in a formal capacity. So reach out anytime, follow, just ask me any questions. I'm always here just to help you remember exactly who you are.
I love this. And I will add all your links to the show notes as well when this podcast is released, so women can access you immediately. And what an honor. What an honor. I feel like we could have a lot more conversations. I feel like there's collaborations in the future, because when you talked about in person, and this is something that I've been playing around with. I feel like something's coming through in that regard, and I'm like, oh, just to have her in the room would be so incredible. So it's been an absolute honor really getting to know you on a deeper level and witnessing your beautiful magic and your gifts and your you-ness. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for being one of our guests on Mystics Unhinged. It's been incredible having you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Samantha. This has been such a gift. And yes, I love working side by side with other powerhouse women. So if we want to create something together, I am here for it. If there's anyone listening who's got a retreat, an event, anything coming up, like I am very much open to that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing me as well. You know, thank you for hearing my story and letting me have another place to just have sources magic land. So I'm really grateful and have really loved this conversation.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to our beautiful audience members who witnessed this live. And I look forward to all the beautiful women receiving when we launch. So much love. Thank you for being here, gorgeous woman, for rising with us, remembering with us, and refusing to shrink inside a world that benefits from your silence. If this episode moved you, cracked you open, or reminded you of who the hell you are becoming, share it with a woman who is ready to rise too. I want to invite you to follow, subscribe, and leave a rating so this message becomes too loud, too wild, and too undeniable to be ignored. The movement grows because of women like you. Women who choose truth over comfort, liberation over obedience, and voice over disappearance. You can connect with me, Samantha Sanford, at Rebel Matriarch, and all links to our guest are in the show notes below. Until next time, stay rooted, stay rebellious, and remember, the world changes when women refuse to disappear.